and it is time. Let's watch.
So there are a lot of problems with our economy that are only getting worse, from housing to crime to homelessness to so much more.
And today we're having a discussion with one of the most outspoken left-wing political commentators who's made it very clear he's anti-landlord.
Oh yeah, we have a very unique debate on that one. Where do you draw the line then between public housing and becoming a landlord? Do you think like a property like this should be owned by the government?
Housing as a mechanism for capital accumulation has really perverted our understanding of housing. Housing should be decommodified.
Anti-capitalist and also a democratic socialist.
This one is going to be very unique, and if you haven't seen it already, check out last week's episode with Brett Cooper from The Daily Wire, who is basically the exact opposite, so we get to see both sides of the spectrum here. But with that said, thank you so much. Enjoy. But first, a message. Let's get to the podcast. I don't think I could ever go live like you do, man. I feel like it takes...
Bro, you
have to be like,
are you stripping that? Because
I'm sorry. I think it's really funny to bring Brett Cooper on, to bring Fem Shapiro on, and then to bring on like Hasan. It's so funny.
Come on.
Oh,
Jack.
okay.
What if I want to give him promo?
You go ahead, man.
I want to give him promo.
Fairlife's actually pretty fire. I mean, their practices are absolutely the worst by like even dairy farmer standards.
Why?
I think like the conditions that they keep the cows in is like worse than other farms.
This is the worst part of being a leftist. The worst part of being a leftist is that everyone else enjoys things around you, and you're like, yeah, I know the torture behind that.
Where do you
Apparently.
learn something like that?
I have a lot of vegans a lot of radical vegans in my community. One of my main editors is a vegan propagandist, actually. So he constantly tries to sneak in stuff like that.
See, I've constantly heard bad things about Nestle.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, what is their deal? Do you know anything about them?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, when you're in the water business, that's already pretty unethical. You know what I mean?
What do they do?
Well,
how
I mean,
how so? How so? What are these hosts? What do you mean, how so? Bruh, you're literally selling people water.
it's like something you need for survival. And these guys are basically going to a local resource, like a natural resource, shutting off access to it and then reselling it back to the people that live there. Well, you know, I would say that's like kind of problematic at least. But then also on top of that, like on the chocolate front, they utilize child slave labor. However, they outsource it to, you know, third-party companies that are completely beyond their control. And the safety mechanisms that they've put in place, I think it's like the Chocolate Alliance, if I'm not mistaken, is like, it's like a regular NGO, you know, shady.
This is me, dude. We are all Mr. Hasi here. We're all Hasan here. Dude. Where I feel like I've been in this position so many times where like someone's like, wait, what do you mean that Nestle's bad? And it's like, where do I start? Oh no, where do I start?
Not exactly consistent. And as far as I understand, the United States Supreme Court ruled that Mars, Nestle, and other American-based or multinational corporations that utilize child slave labor are not legally culpable for any of the damages if they were to ever be sued by the child slave laborers.
Interesting.
Is that because
That was a recent Supreme Court case.
It's basically the same reason that like we have sweatshops and we have such bad working conditions in other countries that we outsource to. It's because it's just really cheap to outsource to those countries. And then they claim, oh, well, that was a third party. We were just trusting the third party. And you can't sue us. You can sue the third party, except the third party is beyond your realm of control. So actually, you can't sue anyone for this.
Ability that they could say, well, we hired this company and we're not responsible for what that company does. And if they do that, we don't know about it.
Yeah.
Is it one of those? Okay.
It's one of those like, oh no, I can't believe the people that we outsource this like hiring process in the global south is utilizing child slave labor. Like, oh. But then again, you know, you got multiple states.
I hate it when that happens. Oh my God. I hate when I buy cheap labor and then I find out later that it's child slavery and that's why it was so cheap. Ugh.
the United States of America unwinding child labor laws, so things are looking great here.
Could you explain that? Yeah.
I don't want to mess this up.
We're
since
pulling
we're
up
on a
sources
podcast.
here on the Ice
Yeah.
Coffee.
But
I think this might be the first time we've had sources pulled up like this.
Well, that's good. We know it's legitimate.
But
you know?
I know Arkansas, or what some people call Arkansas, but I call Arkansas, was recently making a move, and I think Idaho as well.
Is it to lower the age that a minor would be able to work, or what is?
Missouri Independent title says, "Kids at Work. States try to ease child labor laws at the behest of industry." Now, this, of course, is following like a sea of NLRB investigations that were conducted at poultry plants where children were found. Hyundai had a facility in Alabama where children were actually working in the facility. Oftentimes, these are undocumented kids. The Hyundai facilities, I believe in 2 different facilities, they found children all the way from like 12 to 12-year-old, 14-year-olds working at the facilities on the assembly line. There was another investigation conducted where they found that cleaning companies that they were utilizing late at night were also hiring children.
I would love to get more detail about exactly what they want to do, because I know titles could be one thing, a title could be misconstrued, but I wouldn't be opposed necessarily if they make it easier for a teenager or someone who wants to work after school a certain amount of hours, more access to be able to work if they want to.
Yeah.
But again, it depends on exactly what this says.
I can tell you what it is. 11 states have done this, and they've.
What did you say? What? I'm sorry. Pierre, thank you so much for the 5 months. I'm sorry, what?
I would love to get more detail about exactly what they want to do, because I know titles could be one thing, a title could be misconstrued, but I wouldn't be opposed necessarily if they make it easier for a teenager or someone who wants to work after school a certain amount of hours, more access to be able to work if they want to.
Yeah.
But again, it depends on exactly what this says.
Oh my God, this guy needs way more disclaimers for what he's saying. Oh my God, dude. First of all, teenagers already can work legally. You just need to get your working papers. And I think you can do it at 16. It's already really easy to do. You don't need it to be easier. Second of all, I don't think teenagers should be working. I'm sorry. School is like a full-time job.
I can tell you what it is. 11 states have done this, and they've either passed or introduced laws to roll back child labor laws. A push that's coming from industry trade organizations and conservative legislators for the most part. In the past 2 years, those states have moved to extend working hours for children, eliminate work permit requirements, and lower age for teens to handle alcohol or work in hazardous industries.
That would be an interesting one, because Jack, you worked at a restaurant, but you couldn't serve the alcohol, right?
Correct. Yes, correct. Until I turned 21. But a lot of restaurants, like, they don't actually listen to that. Not trying to throw my old restaurant under the bus here, but restaurants don't really adhere to that.
Yeah.
It does seem silly to me that if you have a server who let's say is 19 years old and is waiting on a table, they cannot bring a glass of alcohol to the people that they're waiting on, even if that person doesn't have a drink. Like, some of these things I think can be, but then again, I come from the perspective of, like, I loved working part-time when I was like late middle school, high school. Like, that was the joy of my existence, was being able to work. So I think it just comes down.
Oh, what? What in the capitalism brain rot? What the fuck? The children yearn for the mines. They yearn for the mines. Bruh, that's just probably because you were a loser and you had no friends and you got pushed into lockers, man. That's crazy that you would say that. What the fuck?
Down to like what those changes are.
I think no children should work as a necessity. You know what I mean? Like, part-time labor, understandable. If you want to do it to learn the value of a dollar or whatever, certainly. And a lot of kids work and they're like,
Most people played sports. This guy just had nothing to do with society except forced interaction. Yeah. School is already a job. Plus, you should get to enjoy your childhood before a life full of working to survive. Yeah, exactly.
Family, businesses and whatnot. But ultimately, I think, like, that genuinely harms your development, your capacity to learn when you're tired, fatigued, and you have this additional burden. I think this is a gigantic policy failure. I don't mean like, I'm simply stating that the fact that needs to happen in this country is pretty fucked up.
Let's get more onto that.
But before,
Yeah.
I just wanted to say,
Sure.
there is apparently, according to the U.S. Department of Labor, a 69% increase in children employed illegally by companies since 2018. Child labor is on the
69. More importantly, what the fuck? What the fuck?
rise.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Can you tell us a bit about your background, how you got involved in Twitch in general, streaming?
Sure.
Like, take us back from as a kid.
So I grew up in Turkey to a relatively affluent family. And if you're like even a little bit affluent in Turkey, because of how massive the wealth gap is in a country like that, you're caked up in comparison to like American standards, where if a similar salary would not, or a similar amount of wealth would not make you, upper middle class even.
Sure.
Such is the nature of, developing nations. But by the time I got to college, my dad lost everything, right? Which is fine. I mean, I still had a lot of the benefits of a early upbringing.
Could you tell us? Do you mind telling us how he lost everything, or what?
Futures trading.
What happened in that?
Just
exactly?
gambled, basically.
Yikes. Okay.
You know?
Had he been doing that for a while and seen some success and then just kind of went all in on it or something?
Yeah, pretty much, I think. I'm a little murky on the details. Like, I don't think he's never fully like brought it up. You know what I mean? But he was successful. I mean, he was like lobbying the Turkish government. He was like the right-hand man in a holding group. You know what I mean? He had some pretty serious jobs. But once he got a little bit older and retired, he basically got into that and fucking lost everything.
How old were you at the time?
I was around 17. And then 18 when I went to college, when he like full blown lost it all. Not that it really matters, because like I said, I already got the many benefits of growing up and getting the best education. You know what I mean? So at that point, it's like, it's fine. It's
What
not
other
the end of the
benefits
world.
were there besides a good education? Because you were in the United States at that point, right? No, not yet.
No,
Okay.
I'm in Turkey at
Got
this
it,
point.
okay.
I came to America when I was 18.
Got it.
I would visit the United States
Yeah.
sometimes for summers and whatnot, which I would consider to be one of the benefits at least. You know what I mean? But I mean, it's just freedom.
Sure.
To not have the economic insecurity. Even as a child, even if you don't recognize it, that still weighs on you. You know what I mean? In ways that, like, your parents will be depressed in certain aspects, right? Like that's a lift that people that come from affluent backgrounds don't have to even think about. It's like a burden that doesn't exist. Didn't have to work. You know what I mean? They were very particular about not getting me things that I wanted, but ultimately it doesn't matter, because there were so many amenities that come along with that I benefited from, which is something I talk about regularly. I mean, it was a fairly privileged background.
Yeah.
And, I think that was probably my first, that's when I first started developing an understanding or even recognizing income inequality, was when I switched over from a private school to a public one. And that's when I realized, like, oh shit, like, the gardener's kid and I'm going to the same school. And this was when I was in third grade. I started realizing, like, damn, the gardener's kid is not living like I am at all. You know what I mean? I think that was probably my first recognition of wealth disparity, wealth inequality. Not like, I wasn't like a socialist or anything.
Right.
You know what I mean?
weren't
But
really
as a kid, I was like, why the
views, just
I was just like,
observing.
why the does a kid not have anything? You know what I mean?
Fair.
Yeah.
Like,
What made you say that, though, or think that way? Like, what was it that kid was lacking that you had?
I mean, even like basic food items. You know what I mean? Like, you bring lunch to school, or there's a commissary at school. I can buy whatever I want. He can't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Things like that, little things like that, made me realize that there was something that was a little off.
And what was your sentiment towards it at the time? Were you like, oh, I'm just happy that I'm one of the people, like a haver? Or was it something?
I mean,
like
I was a kid. I didn't really like,
you
think
just-
about it. Anything
Just
beyond
something you
like
observed.
observing it.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
anything beyond the observation. I wasn't like, you know, I didn't have a revolutionary spark.
Sure, that makes sense.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So then you're 18. You come to the United States. What happens there?
And why did you come to the United States? Why here?
Hold up, I want to rechat a little bit. These two are like, no offense to these guys, I'm sure they're fine or whatever, but like, these are some of the worst interviewers I've ever seen in my life. What are the benefits of having money? What are these questions? What am I watching? I'm so confused. I'm just so confused. I saw them do an interview where some rich guy showed his $500,000 Charizard. It's like they genuinely just don't get it. I know. Graham seems genuinely bewildered that poor kids have it worse. Yeah, I know. Like, what?
The reason Arjan is squinting so much is that harsh sunlight bouncing off these two doofuses. My eyes ache.
I think it is bold to do a podcast right next to a window, though. They're crypto bros. Yeah, it's so sad. Oh, God.
I always wanted to come to America when I was growing up. So you probably noticed that I don't have an accent.
Yeah.
And also, I have a pretty solid understanding of American culture as well, because I was immersed in it when I was growing up. Many people around the world are immersed in American culture. Obviously, it's like, you know, pretty profoundly successful. That's why you see the Taliban wearing like Oakleys and you know what I mean? Like these dudes were in a cave, you know, 3 months ago, and now they got like tactical, like American rifles, vests. They're wearing the baseball caps and whatnot. And that's one aspect of like how powerful American culture is. And I was certainly captivated by it. Other kids, they would ask other kids, like, what do you want to be? And kids say, I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a lawyer, maybe. Not really. Or I want to be an engineer. I want to be a firefighter. I was like, I want to go to college in America. It's so weird when I think about it, but that's all I wanted to do. America represented this freedom, right? The American dream. Like it was something I definitely believed.
Yeah.
Paired up with also the social conservatism in Turkey that was like developing and became the Erdogan regime, like the changes that I started seeing.
What were those changes, by the way?
So Recep Tayyip Erdogan, this is a long story,
Yeah.
but Recep Tayyip Erdogan is kind of like Donald Trump, but more successful even than Donald Trump.
Sure.
He basically ran on this like anti-Western degeneracy. We need to go back to, you know, conservative values, while also, of course, privatizing a lot of, you know, key sectors in Turkey that were otherwise nationalized historically. He came in, did all of that, and of course, in order to maintain his popularity with a socially conservative base of support that was all around the country and not necessarily reflected in the big cities, he had to keep, you know, ramping up the intensity, talking about how like Muslims, like the real Muslims, were oppressed in Turkey, a country with like 98% Muslim. You know what I mean? But that the elitist Western-facing Muslims were you know, morally degenerate and ruining the country. They didn't care about the hardworking real Muslims in the villages and in other places, or even in big cities. They were not being reflected in policy. So that was his main method. That was his like culture war, basically, that he used to gain prominence. And it was very successful. I mean, he was pretty profoundly popular and also profoundly unpopular as well.
Sure.
But he still maintained like a coalition of like 51% of the vote.
Fair enough.
Throughout his reign, pretty much. So some of the social changes I observed, one of the dumbest ones, I guess, but like that I immediately recognized was I love political cartoons, political satire. When I was growing up, I used to read these comics that would come out weekly. It was like a newspaper called Penguin, Uykusuz. There was a couple other ones. And they would regularly criticize Erdogan, as political satirists do. They would draw him as like different animals. And he is a very thin-skinned man, as many of these petty tyrants are, and he sued them. He sued a bunch of them, as a matter of fact. And then that was kind of like a turning point. We don't have an American understanding of free speech in Turkey. Erdogan himself actually went to jail for a poem and inciting violence originally, many, many years back, many years prior, before he actually ran for any position of power. But he was now weaponizing that against his, dissenters.
Yeah, same shit, different country. Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. I see we're arguing about child labor in chat for some reason. Can we just say a couple things? First of all, let's not do the thing that anti-feminists do, guys. You know the thing that anti-feminists do where they're like, women want to have better conditions in the United States. There are women in Saudi Arabia that can't drive. Okay? Some women in other countries get forcibly married. It's like, okay, that sucks. And I hope that stops happening. We can still, even though our problems are not that bad, we can still care about changing our problems here that are still real. Second of all, I think personally, children should be able to enjoy the first 16 years of their life not in a workforce, okay? Because then they're going to spend the rest of their lives in a workforce thinking about how are they going to pay their bills. I think you should enjoy the first 16 of your life not doing that. Just my opinion, okay? My opinion. I don't actually think it builds character. I think it just makes you start suffering sooner in life. Okay? It doesn't do anything else. All right? There are other ways to get kids motivated to work on productive things that isn't getting them to work in fucking shithole jobs, okay? You can teach your kid woodworking and have them work on that stuff. You could have a productive kid that knows how to learn a variety of skills and stuff and understand what labor is worth without having them work for a shitty company in a shitty corporation with shitty bosses. You know what I mean? It's my opinion. Just my opinion. Having a job as a teenager does not build character at all. Yep. 16 is a good age to bag groceries or something. Even then they can't even trust to wipe their own ass. Yeah. Yeah. I just disagree. I disagree with this. Work labor isn't the only way to foster a work ethic. Exactly. Because I get the people that say kids need to, they need to learn the reality of the world. They need to know what $1 costs. They need to understand what working is like. I understand the point you're trying to make. Here's the thing. They don't have to be in the workforce to do that. They can learn what labor is worth and learn what work ethic is, not doing that at a shithole job. Because let's be real, teenagers only get really shitty jobs. Okay? Did I ever work before 16? No, I worked when I was 16. I started working when I was 16. Also, you figure that shit out pretty fucking fast anyways. I feel within the first year that I learned, the first year that I started working, I learned that the workforce is shit. I don't think learning that lesson at 14 or 13 or 12 or whatever is a very big difference from learning it at 16, 17, 18, or 19. I really don't think so. They can literally learn things, like the economy. Yes, I agree. And my first job, I realized I was being underpaid. Poggers. Anyways. All right. Also, I'm going to say something. I hate when people bring up like the fact that in other countries conditions are worse, because it's like, dude, what do you want me to do about that? What do you want me to do about the child slave labor occurring in the Ivory Coast? What the fuck am I supposed to do? Like, tell me. At the very least, I can actually try and pretend like I can solve the problems here in the United States. I can't do anything in other countries. What am I supposed? Like, I can pray for them, I guess. Like, I think it makes more sense to discuss the issues that like you actually have some semblance of impact on, right? But anyways, okay. Just wanted to discuss that a little bit. Other countries have it worse. Well, good thing we're not in those countries, I guess. But can we even really say that if we live in the U.S.? Can we really even say that? Can we even do that? Push for legislation to charge international corporations from profiting from child labor, man. So here's the thing. There's no way that's ever happening. The legislation around like outsourcing labor is so fucked. It's so thoroughly fucked. That shit's not getting changed anytime soon. And also like the number of Americans that don't give a fuck about the issue because they're too busy worried about the fact that like their groceries cost like 10 times more than they did like 2 years ago. People don't have the mental capacity to care about those issues when their life sucks here. Never understood that argument. If it's worse, it doesn't mean we can't do better. Exactly. I come from other countries. The USA is other countries refer to talk about social problems. Jesus. All legislation is controlled by corporations. Yeah, no. Wait. You're not cringe, are you? You're not cringe, right? Bro, all legislation is controlled by corporations. Ain't nothing happening. FB lib. You're not a cringe chatter, right? All right. Anyways.
Cracker.
Me too. Funny every time, yeah.
Basically, that was one of those things. There was an element in the air of feeling as though, alcohol consumption was frowned upon, things of that nature. It was never fully regulated, obviously, because it's like a pretty solid sector. Tourism is something that Turkey relies on heavily, and you can't really shut that off, right? You can't just be like, oh, we're not gonna, you're not allowed. But it basically started giving voice to more social conservatives who then felt more empowered to be able to, reinforce their ideas, no matter how backwards they were. So things of that nature. I started noticing that. I didn't like that. The free speech conversation is also a major one, considering that, Turkey does jail a lot of journalists and a lot of academics, like famously. One of the worst one of the worst on the planet. America's still the number one jailer across the board, but Turkey jails a lot of academics and a lot of like dissenters, basically. So, that was not something I was fond of. But, paired up with that, seeing America as it's, this beacon of moral degeneracy that I thought was awesome, and rampant consumption that I also thought was awesome because I'm a bit of a hedonist. I wanted to come to America. It represented this beacon of freedom.
Sure.
Something that a lot of people that, actually immigrate to the United States, if they are fortunate enough to do so, this is a thing that they see from wherever they live because there's so much wealth here.
Oh, dude, isn't that so sad though that like America is known for its fucking like consumerism? Ugh. That's so sad. I feel like America has like I'm my opinion, okay? I feel like America has a lot of things going for it that are actually pretty sick. I think the fact that you can kind of do whatever the fuck you want, wherever you want, more or less, some terms and conditions apply. It's pretty sick. I'm not gonna lie. It's pretty sick. The fact that I can go to the grocery store in my pajamas and nobody gives a fuck, that's amazing. Oh my God. The fact that like you can kind of dress however you want, that's great. Terms and conditions may apply. If you dress in a way that makes people think that you're trans in a southern state, you may or may not experience violence. But that's great. You know what I mean? I like that aspect. And then literally everything else about America sucks. Literally everything else about it sucks. Because I see people trying to like respond and be like, oh, Denims, well, you can do this. You can do yes. Obviously, everything else about the U.S. sucks. Also, America's really pretty. Like the actual country is very pretty. Like our national parks are gorgeous. Dom, thank you so much for the 7 months. Thank you. American media is the biggest part of the problem that's visible to all, nowhere near. Yeah, no, American media and American like media literacy is like causing 99% of our problems. Straight up. Don't forget about NASCAR. I man, brother. Hi, Bobby. America's only pretty because I'm here and increasing the national average by 1,000,000%. God.
There's so much money. And
opportunity too. That's something that I've seen with a lot of people who've immigrated here. They're like, there's so much opportunity everywhere you go.
For sure.
The possibilities are limitless.
Yeah, absolutely. In comparison to other countries, yeah.
Cool. Oh, yeah, totally. And so what was your experience then going to college?
I went to college. First, I came to University of Miami. I was a degenerate. I partied a lot. I had 2 9s both semesters. My parents were like, that is the most unacceptable thing on the planet. Like, how dare you? They were already upset that I chose University of Miami over Boston or even George Washington University, where I got like really fat scholarships from, as a matter of fact. So when I chose University of Miami, they were already frustrated.
What was your reasoning behind picking Miami?
I wanted to have fun.
That was it?
Yeah, no, 100%.
You see the videos of like spring break there, man. It looks nuts.
Oh, it's crazy.
Gosh.
And was it fun? How was it?
It was a lot of fun, yeah. But so was Rutgers, honestly, which is where I inevitably transferred to.
Yeah.
But Rutgers was in New Jersey, and I hated the weather, and I just did not like living in New Jersey at all. Throughout that time, also, I started...
Does anyone like living in Jersey?
Slowly but surely. That's when I started to like genuinely recognizing what was profoundly wrong with America. One of the most significant radicalizing components for someone like myself was healthcare. Like seeing the fact that coming from a country where there is private healthcare, but also public healthcare to a certain degree, like you can still get public healthcare completely free that the government pays for, right? seeing that like you had to pay an insane amount of money to just get like basic procedures, I was like, oh, this is like unacceptable. And it didn't make sense to me at all. I always also had a negative opinion of America's foreign policy as someone who didn't live in America. So that was already there. And that's when I started, moving more into my current beliefs.
What about foreign policy do you think was the most broken from your perspective?
I mean, where do I begin? Everything America does is pretty awful in terms of foreign policy. It's always done at the behest of not some like, democratizing principle as the way they present it here, but instead to make money for the military industrial complex, which is like one of our most viable industries, right? And, there's obviously different layers to it. Resource extraction is a huge component, whether it be illicit and like, not on the books resource extraction or control, like, opium fields that are being controlled or protected by the Marines that have no fucking clue what they're doing there in Afghanistan. Even though those opiates inevitably make their way, not into America, mind you. We have fentanyl that's coming from China that's different, or any kind of other natural minerals, natural resources, or even maintaining a country's economic status so that you can take advantage of their labor force at a much lower
Do you think
price.
America does that?
Oh, absolutely. I think the entirety of the West does that, and I do believe that they do it fairly deliberately.
I feel like I've always kind of in the back of my mind thought about it. If you're giving jobs to these third world countries, right? Like the little, like not like the sewing jobs and stuff like that, like creating materials and stuff, the sweatshops. I always wondered if that was a ploy to keep them because it's such low paying jobs. It's just enough to get by and survive, to like make sure that they still stay at the end of the crack of the whip or something.
That's most jobs, Jack. I feel like most jobs that pay like 50 to 70K a year
You
are
think
just
it's
good
just enough to keep someone under submission? Like,
I would say most jobs keep you just at the neutral point where you don't want to leave, but it's good enough where you want to.
Okay, he's so close. Okay, I don't know about 70K. Hold up, chat. 1 second. I'm gonna get a quick snack. No, I did not get crackers, chat. I actually ordered some ketchup chips online. I've been living well.
Want to stay. That's where I feel like most.
Okay, so
You don't want to recognize that you're being backed into a corner, so much so that you're both hungry and angry because inevitably you'll bite back.
Right.
If you are relatively comfortable through
The one dude is talking about sweatshops and the other dude is like, yeah, sweatshop wages are like 50, 70K. Their brands can't understand reality.
Cracker?
Yeah. Oh no, to be clear, I'm talking 70K in most of the US. Obviously, like 70K in like any major US city is not going to be anything. Like 70K in New York is worthless. It's like 70K in LA is nothing because of how much you end up paying in taxes and then how much like living expenses are. It's really, really expensive. But like, I'm talking about everywhere else, 70K in DC is getting railed. Yeah. Yep. Probably even like Seattle, 70K is not that much. But like 70K in like fucking bumfuck Idaho, you have a McMansion at 70K. Like you got a McMansion, 4-bedroom, 4-bath. You know what I mean? And if you like ketchup chips, you should open a P.O. box. We can send them from Canada land. Dude, I'm gonna reopen the P.O. box, guys. I'm gonna reopen it.
A metric ton of commodities that you can consume at cheap consumer goods for the most part. You'll forget that the cost of healthcare has skyrocketed. The cost of college education, which is like one of the most significant, as it stands, one of the most significant ways of upward social mobility, which is not even that good anymore, right? But the prices have still increased. The cost of housing has dramatically increased. But hey, we get really cheap TVs.
What I wondered, like, how do you solve that problem? Because if you just abandon ship and you take all of those businesses that were using those resources over there, then they don't have jobs at all. And do you think that they would have to fend for themselves and then create something better, like internally, or do you think that it's upon their government to do something for them?
I think China's.
Why do people keep saying 70K is not enough to buy a house anywhere? Sorry, I know that they're talking about something else in the video. I'm just focused on chat saying this. Guys, you guys underestimate how little rent and housing is in other states. Like, you can get a 200K house in, like, most of the U.S. It's going to be in a shitty place in the U.S., but, like, let's look it up. Look this up. Let's look up fucking... What's a good... It would be unlivable? No, it would not. What are you talking about? What the fuck are you talking about? Ohio Zillow. Why are people just in my chat lying about random shit? No.